I'm going to turn this over to Lisa Paddock, my co-host, and she's going to do the introductions for today. And again, please use that QR code. And if you're not available to do that, please use that tiny URL. We will post this back again at the end of the session today. Please welcome everyone, and we're going to get started. Lisa, take it away.
Thank you, Jill. And thank you everyone who's joined us today. My name is Lisa Paddock. I'm one of the directors at InSource, and you are in for an informative webinar today. We are very thrilled to have with us Bethany Colson. She's the executive director of the Center for Deaf and Hard of Hearing Education Center, and Sarah Kiefer, who is the Deaf Education Coordinator at the Center for Deaf and Hard of Hearing Education. So we are so happy to have them here with us. We collaborate with them regularly, and they have very kindly came to tell us all about the services from the center, what they do, perhaps what they don't do, and how they serve children across the state of Indiana. And again, you will see that QR code. Please make sure that you do the sign in so you can receive the information. There's also some information that a QR code that will come up for you for the center, and please fill that out. We do all need to know that we are doing what we need to be doing, and we're getting across the information that we need to be sharing with you. So at this time, I will stop sharing. And I will turn this over to Sarah and Bethany, and thank you, Jill. Also, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we will be keeping an eye on those questions. So again, thank you so much for joining InSource, Indiana's Parent Training and Information Center, and the Center for Deaf and Hard of Hearing Education today. And we will turn it over to you, Sarah and Bethany. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that introduction and for inviting us. We are excited to be here this afternoon and be able to share about our center. So I'm going to kick us off and then pass things to Sarah. A lot to share with you. We also have QR code here. So again, if you have a device that you can grab this QR code, it's going to take you to our main website, or our home web page. Lots of information on our website. Much of what we are going to share is on the website. So again, if you can grab that QR code, great idea to do that now. So I'll give a minute for that. Sarah has also put in the chat a link to our PowerPoint presentation today. So if you want to grab those slides, it is in the chat. All right, so really starting at our core, our mission and vision. Our mission is to promote positive outcomes for all deaf and hard of hearing children through information, services, and education. Highlighting a couple of things here, really all deaf and hard of hearing children throughout the Hoosier State. We are available statewide, and we're gonna talk a bit, but really from birth through high school exit. So what you're gonna hear from Sarah and I today are all the different ways that we interact within systems that exist here in Indiana. We're not meant to work in a box, but again, infiltrate into systems that exist so that we can, again, promote those positive outcomes for these children. And we do that again in these three main ways: information, services, and education. So while we're not providing services to every child, it might be through information, maybe just things on our website, perhaps a conversation or consultation with a family, with a child directly, or with a school district or early intervention provider service coordinator. There are lots of different ways that we may interact to help promote those positive interactions and positive outcomes for children. Our vision is that deaf and hard of hearing children will have the resources and support to reach their full potential. So it's such an awesome idea and vision that we see these children in that full potential. What does that look like for each child? Recognizing that they're unique, that their situation is unique, that every child has that potential. What does that mean? What is that full potential for them? And how do we ensure they have the resources and supports to get there? So a bit of history. We've been around now since 2012 was our original code that came into existence. So Indiana Code 203511 is what our center is based on, and it was in March of 2012 that was put into law. It was in July then of 2013 that the center actually opened. We've got a little picture here of our center lobby area. I will say much of what we do, again, is happening outside of this area, outside of our building, but we certainly do have families come into the building. And so we want to be sure it is a welcoming environment for children, for families. So here's a bit of a picture here. We also go out and about in a mobile unit that Sarah is going to give you information on. So whether we're coming to a school, into a community, into a parent's or family's home, or they're coming to us, lots of different ways throughout our history and even currently that we are reaching children and families. A bit of purpose, again, really just starting here with the foundation. What is the center meant to do? First of all, supporting parent choice with a full continuum of communication options. So what we're talking about there is American Sign Language, other sign languages, cued speech, listening and spoken language, or any combination of those. So for deaf and hard of hearing children, there is this continuum of communication options, and we at the center are not promoting any one above the other, but our, again, intent is to support parent choice within that full continuum of those options or opportunities, with the goal then to ensure that children who are deaf and hard of hearing do acquire optimal language skills and academic abilities, again, regardless of that mode of communication. So wherever a child may fall in that continuum of communication options, whatever that family's goal may be, that we're still ensuring optimal language skills and academic abilities for that child. That's our goal. That's the goal of what we're doing with our support. So diving a little more into our legislation, we have 8 specific duties that are assigned within that Indiana code. I am certainly not going to read all that's on this slide to you, but do want to highlight within each of these duties a little bit, things that we feel are important within each. So that first duty is really monitoring and tracking. Again, I noted that we support children from birth through high school exit. So really monitoring and tracking what's happening from the time that that child is identified as deaf or hard of hearing, possibly soon after birth, soon after newborn hearing screening through a diagnostic evaluation. What happens for them as they get into early intervention, perhaps as they transition to school, transition through school from preschool to elementary, middle to high, and beyond. What are we monitoring and tracking, perhaps their language and communication skills and the like? So that's one of our duties that we're tasked with is seeking to monitor and track these kiddos across time. The next is providing student learning opportunities. And that can look in a multitude of different ways. I will say in the existence of the center now over a decade have done this in a multitude of ways, whether that is supporting within the community, somebody has an idea and we want to support that, lots of different opportunities there. The third, family support. Again, whether that's one-on-one, we're supporting our family or providing events or opportunities for families to come together. One of our duties is to provide support to families. The fourth is assessment service models. You can see that those assessments include audiology, social developmental assessments, communication and academic achievement assessments. So really running the gamut there. And Sarah's going to share more about our assessment team and our assessments in a bit. The next is classroom assessment. So really going out and looking at instruction, also looking at the classroom, the environment, acoustics. What does that look like for a child who's deaf or hard of hearing? And what recommendations would we make to ensure, again, the success of that child, that they are having optimal outcomes in that classroom? The next is really assisting professionals who provide students with sign language interpreting and other interpreting. So we do have availability to provide continuing education or just one-on-one connections with these professionals to share ideas and just provide them with some guidance and assistance. The next, providing consultation to school corporations. This happens all the time, and again, in a multitude of different ways. Again, I believe Sarah is going to go into this in a bit more detail, but I will say this is happening from a phone call or an email to more ongoing support in group type settings via webinars, guidance documents, and the like. So more to come on that. And then the last, acting as a liaison. And this, I think, is really important. I know I mentioned in the beginning, we don't work really in a box. I also will say we don't provide everything to everyone. That's not the intention of the center. We are really meant to bring people together and ensure that families understand what's available to them, that they see, yes, the center as a resource, but they also are aware of all resources that are out there for them and for their children. So in acting as a liaison, we do that within state agencies and other organizations who provide information, resources, and services to children in a similar fashion that we do at the center. So where can we provide, and where do others provide, and how do we come together to ensure families know about all options for them? So now moving a little away from our code and the law, as our center was created, a lot of time and energy was put into, again, these foundational things such as our vision and mission that we started out with, as well as these guiding principles. Again, looking at the foundation of what we are meant to do, what the law acknowledged us to be when we were created. These guiding principles really, again, are taken with us in everything that we do day to day when we are considering programming, providing a service, our interactions, whether that's again with families or professionals, when we're considering to put together a creation of a document, we are taking these principles with us. So again, not to look at each one word for word, but again, just to highlight here. Again, those all communication opportunities, you've heard that a few times now. So again, supporting families, regardless of that communication opportunity, ensuring families know what those are and have the ability to have opportunities for their families and understand what those mean and how to have optimal outcomes for their children. Really honoring the child and student as part of the process, right? Particularly in a developmentally appropriate way, right? We know certainly a 5-year-old is different than a 15-year-old as far as how we're going to honor them in the decision-making process. But we want to do that. We want to see how would we do that for a 5-year-old, and certainly at 15, ensuring that that is part of the process. We're welcoming all families, supporting all families. Really, that ensures really to see where that family is coming from. You've heard a few times now talking about family goals, family priorities. We want to meet families where they are and support them in what they're looking for those outcomes for their children. Seamless collaboration model. Again, we're not working in a box. We provide services, information, and resources, and so do a lot of other organizations, including InSource, right? So again, someone may come to us and we may say, actually, InSource is what you're looking for, and we want to make that connection for that family or that individual. Comprehensive evidence-based and objective information, resources, and services, really ensuring, again, that what we are sharing is evidence-based, that it's comprehensive, and that we have objective information to share. We're often sharing resources that exist. Yes, we're creating some documents. We're often citing other things when we have created our own documents. And oftentimes we are also pointing people to documents that already exist on a national level or from other organizations rather than recreating a wheel. Providing expert leaders, certainly as our staff has grown and as we continue to grow in our own professional development, we give opportunities to each of our staff on an ongoing basis to keep our skills up. And as we, again, look to new people on our staff, we ensure that what are those skills and making sure we are expert leaders, as well as cultural and linguistic diversity. And then tracking and monitoring systems. This is a piece for us that is always ongoing. We have a data system. It continues to be changed and developed. One of the things for us to be within the Department of Health is really that opportunity to work with other programs who work with children and families and see how they're developing, collecting, analyzing data that may be similar to us, that we can also learn from and then develop further as well. So again, this collaborative approach, you'll see here just some of our main collaborations. First steps within FSSA, DOE, Department of Education, also within FSSA Vocational Rehab, certainly higher learning, certainly those universities within Indiana, making sure that we are catching those students who are coming into the field, right? That we have the opportunity to influence the system even before those professionals are coming into the field. MCH, Maternal and Child Health within the Department of Health, and within that, the program of EDDIE, Early Hearing Detection and Intervention, which I'm going to share more about in a moment. So let's get in a little bit more in the nitty-gritty as we're talking about really the start of our engagement with children if they are identified through that newborn hearing and follow-up process. So EDDIE, again, Early Hearing Detection and Intervention, is also a program within the Department of Health. And we are really sister programs with EDDIE. The center and EDDIE work together really seamlessly, and that is intentional. The intent of the center to be placed within the Department of Health was purposeful such that we can connect with EDDIE directly and ensure that when children are identified and reported to the EDDIE program in Indiana, that they are able to share that information with us for continued monitoring tracking, again, for the purpose of promoting optimal outcomes for deaf and hard of hearing children across time. So again, you'll see here, EDDIE is going to connect directly through our center within early intervention, because again, most often children who are deaf and hard of hearing are going to be identified through that newborn hearing screening and diagnostic evaluation process, which optimally happens within the first 3 to 6 months of age. So through EDDIE and through that diagnostic evaluation, we're going to work to ensure that those children and those families are entering early intervention, and not only early intervention, but aware of and have the opportunity of specialized services for deaf and hard of hearing children and their families. And that's where our center really comes into play. But of course, again, that's not where we end. We also have audiology throughout the spectrum. We provide services as one of many opportunities for families to receive audiological care within the state, and deaf education as well. So we'll share a bit about each of those as we continue on with you this afternoon. All right, so let's look at what our role is when we're talking about identifying a child as deaf or hard of hearing. So EDDIE is part of, again, state law in that they have a requirement for audiologists or professionals who identify a child as deaf or hard of hearing to receive a report from that professional. And that is considered a diagnostic audiological evaluation report, or a DAE report. That form is required to be sent, again, to the EDDIE program, and through a data sharing agreement, again, then shared with us as the center, so that both EDDIE and the center can be sharing that information through a referral to First Steps, through our early intervention system, through FSSA here in Indiana. And again, then we can be working with First Steps, with the family, with EDDIE, to ensure that they are aware, the family is making it to that process, understanding what their opportunities are within early intervention and engaging in that process. Now, for deaf and hard of hearing kiddos, we know the importance of early intervention to ensure communication, language is coming at an optimal opportunity or an optimal rate, right? And so in order for that to happen, we want early intervention to happen quickly. But sometimes it's often before, maybe 3 to 6 months of age, and sometimes families are like, I'm not sure why I'm doing this yet. So for us to be able to really help to explain to families the reality of early intervention services as a coaching model. First Steps is a coaching model to work with parents to engage with those infants and toddlers, again, to ensure those optimal outcomes. And for our deaf and hard of hearing children, especially those communication outcomes. So again, we're referring to early intervention and and then determining services really based on the family's desired outcomes. So we're providing all information about a multitude of services available, including through our CDHHE network, and families note what their goals are and select services based on the family outcomes. So our early intervention program is certainly within First Steps, but we do more than that. Again, we're also helping EDDie with that lost to follow-up piece. That data sharing really goes back and forth between the center and EDDie. With those, we do provide diagnostic ABRs, or those diagnostic evaluations, when children are referred from newborn hearing screening. We also work with EDDie, as I mentioned, to be sure that families are getting to early intervention. Again, we are a First Steps agency providing services. We also provide trainings, First Steps SPO trainings and collaborations, as well as being part of that intake process, helping First Steps to ensure that they feel confident to share information with families of deaf and hard of hearing children about these specialized services. And we provide family events. Currently, those family events that we have going on are Story, Signs, and Snacks, a virtual story time for families. You'll find those recordings on our YouTube page, which is connected to our website. So we have those recorded for viewing at any time, and they do happen once a month, both virtually and sometimes in person. All right, so within our CDHHE network, we do have the following services. So we offer parent advisor services, and really the purpose of this service is really to provide information about all opportunities of communication as well as general development. So how can we ensure that that family is understanding what the needs are of raising a deaf or hard of hearing child and what the opportunities are for communication development? We have deaf mentors who are deaf adults themselves and assist with the development of ASL if that is a goal of the family. Sharing early learning, early visual language strategies, and again, information about deaf culture as well. We also have spoken language services through a speech therapist or an LSL provider. Those are coaching and direct services focused on audition, listening, spoken language, and speech development. And then we have audiology evaluations and amplification services as well. Within the CDHHE network, I mentioned we're an agency. Through the CDHHE network, we have a secondary agency that we work with, or a second agency. St. Joseph Speech and Hearing is that second agency providing that LSL service. The last piece I want to share really in this birth to 3 process before I transition to Sarah is about transition. So we may be providing information, services to this child birth to 3, perhaps through First Steps or perhaps not. But at the transition period, we are going to provide information through at minimum, a transition letter. So around 2 years of age, we send letters out to every child that we know of who is deaf or hard of hearing to say, give information that their child will be transitioning to school-age services, and let them know that we exist, that we're happy to support them, that we have resources on our website, and the like. We also can continue and do continue our early intervention services. And in that letter, if a family isn't having our early intervention services ongoing, they're certainly able to reach out to us and say, you know, at this time and through this transition, I would like to add in a service. Most likely that service would be parent advising, that person or that provider would be coming alongside them to help them through the transition process, again, to help them understand this process from Part C and early intervention to Part P and understanding school services. We do have this resource that is a visual here, again, on our website. It goes through all the different laws and different steps of transition. We attend transition meetings. Also, we do provide assessments for eligibility. Sarah will share that in more detail. and we participate in case conferences. So again, when we talked about that monitoring and tracking, that smooth transition, this is one of those, or really this is the first, right? Well, second one of those. One is from ID to intervention, from that EDDI through intervention. We want to help early intervention. And now here's another transition that we as the center want to ensure, A, we're monitoring and tracking, and B, that we're helping it to be seamless for a child and their family. Okay. So Sarah, I'm going to pass to you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. All right, I'm going to take the reins and talk. So after that transition process, and on the previous slide, there was a little graphic that you might have seen. We have guidelines for assessing kiddos who are deaf and hard of hearing. They are currently under revision, so hopefully the new one will be up every time that there is some new law changes and that sort of thing. We want to make sure that our assessment guidelines are in alignment. So with the new changes with Indiana Article 7, we have taken that into consideration and have made some tweaks. And so those should be ready and available on our website soon, but our previous one is there currently. And so that really goes into detail about kind of what those best practices are, what assessments are there available. And of course, there are lots of assessments. Most of them are not normed on children who are deaf and hard of hearing, but we really want to make sure that we are looking at the development of our students or our children who are deaf and hard of hearing with their hearing peers. Some of those assessment tools that are available are great resources for kids who are deaf and hard of hearing, and we can really kind of dig in deeper to some of those domains to see maybe where there are some missing gaps. And then some of them, we may give some guidance to those professionals who might be administering those assessments and say, you might not get all of those different areas that take into consideration some of those unique language needs that our kiddos who are deaf and hard of hearing have. So with that, we do follow best practice. We follow law with our multidisciplinary assessments that we have here at our center. And those are available for any child who is deaf or hard of hearing across the state of Indiana, at that time of transition all the way through high school. So we will take that information. So a referral can come from anywhere. We get referrals from providers. We get referrals from First Steps at that transition meeting. We get referrals from teachers of the deaf. We get referrals from some medical facilities sometimes, and we certainly get referrals from parents. And so referrals can come in any sort of way. And then every week we take those referrals and we review them, and we review the information that was sent along with them. We will also reach out with a release of information to gather more information so that we really kind of have a good comprehensive view about what that child, kind of what those needs may be. And then we take that into consideration when we are assigning an assessment team. So we work collaboratively with school districts for this process. So sometimes we will receive a referral from a school district and it might say, hey, we're interested in you guys looking at speech, language, and audiology. Great, we're going to do that component. And they say, and we're going to look at occupational therapy, school psychology. Wonderful. So we really do work in tandem with the schools in that way. Other times we'll get referrals and we are going to do a comprehensive assessment. Sometimes we will get a referral and the school will do the majority of the assessment, and maybe we just come and we will participate in the IEP meeting or the case conference to review that. There are times that school districts will conduct the whole assessment and they just kind of want us to take a look at it and then maybe give some further recommendations there as well. We also may go out and provide on-site, so maybe we'll go out and observe the classroom environment and observe the child kind of in their day-to-day to also give some recommendations there. We do have available on our assessment team a school psychologist, our visual language or our American Sign Language specialist, speech language pathologist, our audiologists who are really educational audiologists as well. They're able to look at some of those things that are important to take into consideration in the educational environment and be able to incorporate those in our assessments as well as our reports. We have an accommodation specialist, deaf educators, listening and spoken language specialists, and then of course our occupational therapists and physical therapists. Now that doesn't mean that every child will have all of those professionals working with them, but sometimes we do have all of those professionals working with a child. But really it is based off of the need, how the referral comes in. And like I said, we do a thorough file review before we kind of select those teams for the assessment day. It's a full day, typically here, but what is really nice is that we're all able to kind of work together. I come from working in the school district where oftentimes, maybe the speech language pathologist would see a child one day, and then, maybe the teacher of the deaf was going to do an observation a different day. What is nice is that we are all able to kind of work together, oftentimes in tandem. We frequently will bring our occupational therapist even into the audiology booth with us sometimes with children. So we can have that support there as well. So it is really nice to be able to work collaboratively with each other. We also invite anybody who wants to come. So any of the professionals who are currently working with that child, they are welcome to come. And in fact, this morning, we just had a school district and their teacher of the deaf was here. She was able to observe everything. And then they also had a private ABA therapist who was also here and came in. And we love collaborating with these professionals. Oftentimes we will have other professionals coming in, like speech language pathologists, and they'll say, I wonder how you do these assessments. And they're really interested to learn from our speech language pathologists how we approach assessments and how we give recommendations based off of the findings that we are able to obtain. So we love working in tandem. We love having any and everybody come and be a part of that. We do ask that you let us know so that way, because sometimes we can have a lot of people here and that might be a little bit overwhelming, especially for a little one. But we try to make it really fun and engaging. So we do welcome people to come. We've often had other, so I know Bethany had talked about our relationships with universities. We kind of consider ourselves a teaching campus. We want people to come. We want people to observe the process. We want to get them interested in working with children who are deaf and hard of hearing. So they're always welcome to come and observe what we do in our assessments to have that conversation with our professionals. I think at last count, we have about 300 years of experience collectively with all of our staff at the Center for Deaf and Hard of Hearing Education, and we work with kids who are deaf and hard of hearing. That's what we do. So we know that that we have a little bit of advantage because that's our specific area of expertise. So we love to be able to share that knowledge with others. Along that same vein, we provide a lot of professional development. So we have quarterly, what we call our DHH roundtables, and that is for any professional who is working with children who are deaf and hard of hearing. By and large, we have teachers of the deaf and hard of hearing statewide who attend those. And we also have some speech language pathologists. We'll have special education directors join those, but really just anybody who is working with and supporting children who are deaf and hard of hearing. We welcome professionals to come and collaborate with one another to kind of learn the latest and greatest, what's going on in the field of deaf education. Perhaps there are some accommodations that we discuss for, some of our state standardized assessments and things like that. Some of the work that we do on some of the committees that we work with other state agencies, we may bring that information. We work collaboratively with vocational rehabilitation, and maybe there's some news to share out there. We work collaboratively with the Department of Education, and perhaps there's something that we've been working on with them that that will also share that out to our teachers of the deaf and hard of hearing. Oftentimes, they're kind of out there on an island all by themselves. If they're fortunate enough to work with a couple, that's great. But sometimes because it is a low incidence field, they may just be out there in a district. And so we really do want to make sure that they have that sense of community and are able to connect with one another. And it's a great opportunity to bring them all together at least quarterly for that to happen. Our next professional development that we have, we call it In Deep, and it stands for New Deaf Educator and Emergency Permit Professional. They did change the language, and so it's no longer emergency permit, but it had a nice ring to it, calling it In Deep, because we do feel that those individuals who are new or aspiring teachers of the deaf and hard of hearing are in deep. And so we want to be able to offer support to them. So we regularly collaborate with the 2 universities currently in the state who offer that training program for educators to become licensed teachers of the deaf and hard of hearing. So we meet regularly, almost monthly. We take a couple of months off around some of our breaks, but we meet almost monthly with our In Deep crew, and that we're really getting down to basics, how to provide service. What does service provision look like? How do we take this information from assessment and write a really good goal? What are all the parts and pieces that go into an IEP for a child who is deaf or hard of hearing? And so we do that as a smaller group. And we actually often have some veteran teachers who are like, you know what, I might want just a little refresher, and they'll come in on those as well. With that In Deep, we do offer ongoing mentoring, especially because we know that there's such a significant shortage of teachers of the deaf and hard of hearing, not just statewide, but nationally as well. And so, so we offer that ongoing mentoring, and we will make ourselves available. We will go out to school districts. We will kind of walk them through things together. We will also meet with special education directors. How can we best support you? How can we best support you in this role? And then just be able to offer our expert guidance as well as resources and those sorts of things. There's also a couple of listservs available. So as any new information hits our desk, we want to be able to forward that along to the field. I know from experience, but it is sometimes hard for it to trickle down a little bit. So sometimes it kind of hangs out, the information will go out there, but it might not get to those teachers who are deaf and hard of hearing, especially those who have multiple school buildings or even multiple school districts. So we like to share that information as we have that information available to us. We send it out for people that if it's helpful at that time, or they can throw it in a folder and save it for later as well. So going along with that, we provide a lot of consultation to schools, to teachers of the deaf and hard of hearing. We can go out and assist with a classroom observation. We can conduct a classroom observation. We can kind of model that as well. Kind of what are those parts and pieces that are necessary, especially if we're looking at initial eligibility, or kind of looking to see if there are some things or suggestions that we can make so that they can have better access to their educational environment. Again, lots of trainings. We do those one-on-one or perhaps in a smaller group. We also will provide in-services to schools or to school teams. We have done district-wide in-services before. Oftentimes too, here lately, we've been doing a number of in-services at private schools as well. So perhaps those children may not receive special education services from their local public school, but we can still go in and work with those staff members to give them some information about perhaps these are the child's hearing levels. These are some things that you might need to take into consideration, some accommodations that may be beneficial, and that sort of thing. And then we also will assist with some DHH program consultations. So sometimes maybe helping to streamline efficiencies, or kind of maybe thinking outside of the box of how we can meet all of these children, their unique needs. And we'll offer some of that to kind of look at some things through a fresh lens as well. Often that happens kind of at time of transition too. So perhaps there's teachers who have retired, or perhaps there is a cooperative, a school cooperative, a group of people who are a group of districts that have been together, and perhaps that cooperative is dissolving. And so we kind of will work together to make sure that all of those service needs are being met. We also provide interpreter training and collaboration. We have regular educational interpreter roundtables as well, and that happens after school hours, which is wonderful, so that all of those interpreters are able to participate in those. Laura Leffler is the one who typically runs those, and she will regularly collaborate with the interpreters who are working with students out in the schools, making sure that they have best practice guidance, making sure that they have training to help support their credentialing, to help to move them towards some credentialing too, depending where they are at in that journey. Educational audiology. So in Indiana, we have a very limited number of educational audiologists working in the schools. In other states, they may have a lot more, but in our state, we have a limited number. And some of those duties fall on teachers of the deaf and hard of hearing. So we like to just model best practice and bring in our educational audiologists to provide a lot of that support. Some of that support may be on our mobile unit, which you will see that in here in a minute as well. But we do get regular consultations for educational audiology. Perhaps there's a child who has received a new set of hearing aids, and how do we connect those hearing aids to hearing assistive technology, or what we call HAT, that microphone system, so that that child has that direct auditory input to those devices. We want to ensure that there is an appropriate match of those devices with their personal technology too. So it is best practice to have an audiologist recommend and as well as be a part of that process to make sure that it is most appropriate for that child. And so we have a wonderful team of audiologists who are happy and willing to help in that way. And then, of course, Bethany had mentioned this too. We have our guidance documents and tip sheets, and they are ever evolving and ever changing. And when we have some things that pop up and we're like, oh, we've been talking about this quite frequently, or we've been giving resources quite frequently, it might be time for us to create a tip sheet. We also have a regular newsletter that goes out, and sometimes some of the things that we are discussing in our newsletter might be something that we also create into a tip sheet as well. Bethany, you want to move me to the next slide? Thank you. This is huge. So our considerations of special factors. So we did just recently update this. This is in alignment with Article 7. It is one of those sections in the IEP that is a little less familiar because it only pops up if you select deaf and hard of hearing as an eligibility. So we also know that only about 1% of our IEPs are for children who are deaf and hard of hearing. And so the vast majority of our case conference committees don't see this section pop up all the time. And sometimes when they do, they're like, what's supposed to go in that box? I don't know. So we actually have a worksheet that will pair nicely with that box. And if you look kind of down below, that's exactly what that box looks like when you are in our Indiana IEP in the edit mode. So you would select yes. And in fact, that is aligned with law. Every deaf and hard of hearing child should have that selected yes, even if deaf and hard of hearing is not their primary eligibility, it should still be selected as yes. And then it asks in the narrative box, describe the student's language and communication needs. So our worksheet will allow for the team to kind of come together and talk about what those needs are. So how does that child communicate? Do they have technology? What are their opportunities to even communicate with other children who are deaf or hard of hearing? If a child is using ASL as their primary mode of communication, what opportunities do they have to have conversations or direct instruction from other professionals or other students who are deaf and hard of hearing? It talks about what language is used in the home. And then, of course, any of that other additional assistive technology. And the assistive technology could be assistive hearing technology, but it could also be perhaps there's an augmentative device that is also being used, or an AAC device. We look at, are they using their personal hearing devices regularly? Are they wearing them regularly? And those are the kinds of things that can be summarized and put in here as well. Also, they're just kind of, what does their expressive and receptive communication, what does that look like? And what needs might they have to be able to help best support them in the educational environment? So we're really looking at all of those things and making sure that that is contained in the child's IEP at school. Go ahead and move on to the next one. Thank you. So this is another program that we have. So this, our Hearing Aid Assistance Program of Indiana, that came along in 2014, which is so wonderful because most insurance companies do not cover the expense of pediatric hearing aids. And they are not the cheapest. So it is, so when this legislation passed, and you can see the statute there, it provides hearing technology for school-age children, which is wonderful because, you know, we have kiddos who oftentimes it could be a barrier for access because they didn't have appropriate technology. So we are really excited that this program exists and that we are able to oversee this program. So 3 years of age through high school. If you are working with any kiddos who are in high school, we do like to recommend that if you get one more set of hearing aids before you graduate, because after the time of graduation, individuals are kind of left on their own to be able to purchase those devices. And sometimes insurance companies will cover those, but then sometimes they may not as well, or they may not have a program available through their employer. So, so it is really kind of a nice program for us to have. And we have Happy providers, or our audiologists who are participating in Happy all across the state of Indiana. We also provide that here at our center, but we have the ability to connect you to other Happy providers across the state too. So, so if you go onto our website here, that hapindiana.org, you can take a look and see a list of all of those audiologists who are our Happy audiologists that can also work with the children who are in your area.
I'll just add a couple things here. Thanks, Sarah, for all of that. All of the application, both for the family and the audiologist, is all online now. It's super simple. The audiologist can help the family through it. So they do need things such as either birth records to show that they're 3 years of age if they're not yet in school, or a record that they are school age so that they are enrolled in school. They will need medical clearance, so a doctor that signed medical clearance for hearing aids, and also an audiology report or an audiogram within 6 months. So just a little more information there to help guide families, but it's a very quick process for families, which I love. There is a cost participation for families. It's between $100 and $400, I believe, out of pocket per hearing aid, compared to thousands of dollars for families. It's such a great service, and families are taking advantage of this across the state. So again, just want to highlight that this has really filled a need within our state, and it's a very simple process for families. So we're super excited about it. Thanks for letting me pop in, Sarah.
Yeah, no, thank you. And one thing that I think that we have continuously received feedback that the cost participation is very manageable. It's doable. So based off of income as well as household size, and it does seem to be not a burden for most families, which is really a positive for this program. And even that is on the website too, how it's all broken down. So there's no guessing. So it's not like you're going to get stuck with a bill that that you're not familiar with too. So the next, we also, along the same vein as our audiologists, we have this amazing mobile unit, and maybe some of you have seen us out on the road. We actually last week we were at a number of schools last week, and so you guys might see us out on the road. This is our mobile unit, so and you can kind of see what it looks like. I encourage you guys to all take a virtual tour because I don't think that the pictures do it justice, but we do have a video up on our website as well. And it shows all of what we can do with our mobile unit. So the mobile unit is wonderful because it does allow us to kind of go out to those individuals in need across the state of Indiana. So we're removing that barrier of having them have to come or have to find care someplace, and we're able to do that. So if you can see over to the left, we do have a full audiology booth that is in that mobile unit, as well as our testing suite. So our audiologists will work there, similar to what they would do if they were here or if they go to another audiologist in their area. And then we have a section for assessment or consultation and that sort of thing. Oftentimes we will invite the families as well. And it's a wonderful opportunity to give them some consultation, to talk to them, to give them some guidance about next steps and those sorts of things. We'll also meet with school professionals too. So we can take our mobile unit. We most frequently, I would say, are at school districts. And sometimes there may be some families there and they are in need of having a comprehensive audiological evaluation to allow them to then look to see if a child may be eligible for that deaf or hard of hearing or special education services under that eligibility. And it could be that there is a barrier to accessing that locally. We are not managing audiologists, so we don't provide ongoing regular management, but we are able to then partner with the school district, or we can partner with the family to get them some services or be able to connect them with some local resources as well. And so we will go out for a variety of reasons. Sometimes there may not be a pediatric audiologist in the area. And so our staff is able to do that. And we can also come off of the mobile unit. And sometimes we'll go into the school. Actually, in fact, last Thursday, I went in and we saw the child in the audiology booth. He was also getting happy hearing aids, so he was being fit with those. And then we did some functional listening evaluation in the school district or in the school building, which was really nice to be able to kind of look at how he's performing all the way around. And so sometimes we'll also bring our assessment team out alongside our mobile unit. And so we may also go into the school and maybe do some language assessments or for any other, whatever may need to happen, or do an observation of the student in their educational environment as well. So pretty cool unit. And we do have a referral on our website, or if you are interested and we have information, we would need to gather consent and all of that, but then we can definitely make an arrangement to come out to a nearby school near you or another community building too.
Yeah. Tacking a little on here too, our intent sometimes is just to help families to get the process started. You know, often what we find in schools is they are perhaps seeing something in the classroom that leads to some concern, or perhaps a couple screenings have been referrals, but not following up with a full audiological assessment. So sometimes bringing us in and having the family come in allows for some consultation to happen, such that then the family has better understanding of the need for an evaluation, or is able to see then the results of an evaluation to move on. So, you know, there are lots of audiologists, as Sarah mentioned, even through Happy and even outside of Happy throughout the state. And our intention is not to be an audiologist throughout the state, but how can we bridge, you know, a family who perhaps isn't understanding or not following up for a multitude of reasons, to get them then to an audiologist in their community. So we utilize this unit for that purpose too. So lots of different reasons, and as Sarah said, it's a really cool opportunity for us.
And if you ever see us around, feel free to come on, because it's pretty cool to see. I think it's very unique, and there are some out there, you know, but we're really excited to be able to have this as a part of our center. Okay, so one of the most recent pieces of legislation is our Indiana Deaf Education and Assessments of Language, and this is actually following kind of a national trend, but also best practices to ensure that our children are developing and that we are able to close any gaps that may be existing. And so this was signed into law in 2019. And then we messaged it out in 2020, which we all know kind of what was happening around the globe at that time. But the purpose is to make sure that we're really truly monitoring language. We're monitoring literacy skills. So we're making sure that our kiddos have those improved outcomes. Oftentimes, so prior to this legislation, we kind of worked with those kiddos in First Steps and had regular ongoing progress monitoring through First Steps. And then at the time of transition, they may have an assessment done at time of transition. Perhaps they have an IEP. But the next time that they actually have one of those, formal assessments would be maybe if there was a red flag, or perhaps they wouldn't have another assessment until maybe state standardized testing, and then they took an assessment and maybe did not fare as well. But this legislation is really, so that we are continuing to monitor that annual progress. And I can tell you from a personal standpoint that sometimes those big red flags don't show up. They're not as obvious. And it could be that we are aware of an area of need and we're going to be addressing that area of need. And we have goals to be working on that area. And we're like, and then that child can be, oh, they're really on target with that area. And if we don't have that annual progress monitoring, they may be falling behind in another area. What we know, typical hearing children, oftentimes if there's a weaker area, the stronger ones will pull those other weaker areas up. With our children who are deaf and hard of hearing, often it has the opposite effect. So it could be that, we're gaining in one area, but maybe perhaps another area is going down. And so this allows us to catch things early, provide intervention early, provide additional supports early before we have a bigger and bigger and bigger gap. The bigger the gap widens, unfortunately, that typically then will require more resources, more services, more personnel perhaps to work with that child to close that gap. And unfortunately, if the gap widens a little too much, it can create a learning disability. So we want to ensure that that these children that we're closely monitoring and we're making sure that we're closing any of those existing gaps. So with this legislation, it is for children from birth through age 10. And we are so through age 10 or under age 11. And so what the goal is to follow that best practice for working with children who are deaf and hard of hearing to conduct an annual language assessment. And then those reports or those scores are required to be reported into our IDEAL portal, which is on our website as well, for a specific, and we've got a list of tools that are on our website. And in fact, we have a list of tools that also we really kind of outline what those specific tools look at, what they measure. And so hopefully that's another piece of guidance to be able to help to select some of those most appropriate tools based off of the child's needs and kind of where they're at. And so that way, that information then will come to our portal. And then that can continually be looked at and monitored and of course added into a child's IEP. And then we are able to offer some technical assistance. So let's say there's a child and they have a weaker subtest in one of those areas. Districts can reach out to us or anybody can reach out to us and say, hey, do you guys have some information or resources or what can I do here? We also have a growing repository of resources related to language development. Along with this, we have created, I'm not sure if it's on this slide or it could be on the next, but I think it might be on the next slide. You can maybe go over. There it is. Okay. Yes, I thought so. So we have a parent document that goes alongside with our IDEAL legislation. There is a section specifically about law. It's a larger parent document. It is also available in Spanish as well. But we also have the different sections kind of parsed out here, and you can see those different QR codes. So one of those sections is specifically on law. One of those sections is about the supports for language acquisition. information about general language development, and then of course our language milestones. The language milestones are available in English, American Sign Language, as well as Spanish. And so sometimes people will take this section and they'll say, oh, my child's about this, this age, and they may put it on the refrigerator to say, oh, you know what? I've noticed he's met this milestone. He's met this. Oh, he doesn't have this. Maybe that's one that we can focus on too. And we do encourage schools and teachers of the deaf and early intervention providers to also take that and use that as a resource too. We have technical assistance again available, so some red flags to look out for, information just in connection with some of those language assessments that we have. The list of tools and assessments that we gather through IDEAL. So once any of those assessment measures are conducted, then those would go into that reporting portal, and that is a QR code that you have available to you as well. We do, even though this legislation goes through the age of 10, we do recommend annual language assessments until a child is deemed language proficient. And we know that language proficiency doesn't happen at age 3. So, so we are really pleased that this legislation goes through age 10 because it is really important to continue to monitor that progress, just to make sure, again, that we didn't miss something or that we're not waiting in too long and then there's a big red flag of, or we have to have a lot more services put in place for a kiddo to make up some of those missing gaps. Here's a section here. If you want to kind of take a look at some of it, is a very parent friendly. There's lots of colorful pictures, lots of links for additional information. This one that we have highlighted here, we have one about literacy, and it just talks about just in general, how can we develop really good literacy skills for our kiddos who are deaf and hard of hearing? Of course, a lot of this pairs with children who have typical hearing, but it is something that sometimes there are some tips and tricks that we add in here that are unique to our population of kiddos that we serve. And then over here on the other side, we have the process for getting early intervention services. What does that look like? So hopefully the way things have, they've gone the way that they should have, right? With that identification, at birth. However, we also know that sometimes kiddos at birth, they may not have an identified hearing loss. And so that might come later in the process. Sometimes it comes at age 1, sometimes at age 2, or we discover, oh, this child's not talking and wonder if there's something going on there. So within that 0 to 3, here is the process of getting early intervention services. And oftentimes, so the different pages that we have, the different sections in our IDEAL guidance document for parents, we will pull out specific sections or specific resources when we do assessment or perhaps during early intervention services and provide this information for families so that they can have this or put it on the refrigerator or kind of have it out so that they can refer to it. We do a nice job of really defining what different terminology means, what professional roles are, processes, what does the IEP process look like? What happens first? What happens second? What is the difference between an IEP and a 504 plan? And so what are some common accommodations maybe that would be beneficial for children who are deaf and hard of hearing? So we include all of that in there in a very parent-friendly version so that the parents are able to understand.
I also want to link back to something we shared before of the idea that we, again, aren't working in a box or recreating things. So you'll see here on the literacy page, all of those links at the bottom. So yes, the parent document is something that was created from the center and the IDEAL Advisory Committee. But, right, we're also highlighting these resources that already exist from organizations near and far. So just wanted to link that, and you'll see that all the way through this parent document, that here's information we wanted to highlight to share, and also here is other places where you'll find additional information.
Yeah, and you might even see links for InSource in there too. I know they're in there. InSource is a great resource. This is an example of our language milestones that you'll see here. So over to the left here, 6 to 9 months. What should we be seeing? So again, this is in a really parent-friendly way of saying, oh, your child should or will look at a toy that you show them, or perhaps attentively looking at somebody's face. So this is oftentimes you'll talk to a parent and maybe their child's not talking yet. And that, yes, we understand that, but there are so many things that occur prior to a child starting to talk that we can show that they are ready, to take that next step when they are learning how to communicate with the people who are around them. So again, this is the ASL is over there too on the left-hand side, and in spoken English too. So you can kind of see what those language developmental milestones are there too. And then we also add information about social print skills, those other literacy areas like that maybe they will imitate the actions of others, or maybe they will take turns, with those language exchanges and things like that. So, and again, and we have some examples here, of things that you can do to assist in that way. For example, build on what your child says. If they say or sign ball, you can say, that's your big red ball, or you can sign ball and then red, and that's your ball, so expanding that language to help them develop.
I think this really goes nicely with what Sarah said earlier about monitoring language through annual assessments. That's something that we suggest and highly recommend for professionals. In the same vein, we highly recommend that parents are aware of what should your child be doing now at this age, and then what's coming up. So these milestone or the milestone portion of this document is an awesome way to do that. I know I use it with my early intervention families. Okay, let's pull this out. What are the things that you're seeing? What are the things you're not? And then talk about some of those activities. Certainly later on, families can be able to look at that and then ask their teacher, ask their providers, what are ways that we can be developing this, or what goals should perhaps we be working on. Every section, so every age will have both of these pages that look just this, or they have the same information. Receptive and expressive, general language on the top, ASL and spoken English on the bottom on the first page, and the second page will have that literacy and social. So every age group from birth through 10 has that, which I think is also really nice for parents, that it's routine. So if they can get in the routine of using it, then it's going to be consistent for them over time.
And we do have, along with those milestones, kind of a really quick checklist, and oftentimes we'll provide those to professionals. So perhaps you're bringing a child in for a play-based assessment, or arena assessment, and you're kind of like, oh, I wonder if they can, do they do this? Do they do this? But it is kind of nice for to use in that way, as well as, for potential goal development as well. So, oh, this is where the child is at, and we can take that and say, okay, so this is kind of where those skills lie, or this is kind of what would be appropriate for this child at this age. But perhaps we need to back it down a little bit because it's, the child may not have those skills yet to be able to then build on those skills.
Yeah. Two other things about the milestones I want to mention. Sarah did mention that the whole parent document is available in English and Spanish. For the milestones, we also have Spanish language milestones. So we have English, ASL, and Spanish language milestones, birth through age 10. Then we've also expanded that through middle and high school. So for those young adults, there's expanded language milestones too. So just wanted to mention those two additional things about the milestone document.
We do actually. It's funny when we go and exhibit at some of our at some conferences. Oftentimes, the speech language pathologists and the special education teachers are very interested, and the English learner teachers are very interested in our Spanish milestones as well, so that they're able to then compare English development and Spanish development for the students that they serve too. So alongside that, it's a pretty robust parent document, but then here we also have all of our technical assistance that is available. And of course, it's parent friendly as well. But it is, there's some information here specifically about kind of best practices and what is our evidence-based information show us about what we need to take into consideration when working with children who are deaf and hard of hearing. These are meant to be kind of one-pagers, so that we can, take them and pass them out or say, oh, there's something going on here. Sometimes our teachers of the deaf might say, oh, you know what? I know that this speech language pathologist is going to be working with this child. Oh, I found this resource in that ideal packet and I can give this information to them so maybe they can keep it in their office. One of the things here I see is a listening check for those spoken English evaluations. And so this goes into what is a listening check? What does that look like? And it might be that the teacher of the deaf is very well versed in how to do this, but perhaps they are going to have the school nurse be able to provide a listening check. And yes, probably not in conjunction with an evaluation, but daily listening checks and making sure that that device function is working appropriately in the school setting. And so they can take out some of this information and they can pass it to whoever may be doing those assessments as well. So, and we always recommend too, if there's something that is a part of IDEAL or if there's something that is a part of any of the things that we do here, and that there's a need for a technical assistance guidance document, please do reach out to us because we would be happy to create something that would best meet the needs of, in your situation, your school district, and the like, or we may already have something that is already developed that we can share with you as well, or perhaps point you to another more national, organization or other resource that we have in our repository too. So here are some examples. We have a lot more. I have them linked here. Some of these things linked here for you. So, Bethany talked about that transition from early intervention services to school. So here is kind of what that looks like or what those services may look like at that time of transition, and some of the different entities that may be in play at transition meetings and perhaps helping to provide assessment and then perhaps school placements as well that are available here in Indiana. We also have our a lot of audiology tips and tricks. There's information about school hearing screenings, and sometimes those school hearing screenings are being done by outside contractors that are coming in. Sometimes they're being done internally by speech language pathologists or school nurses, so it is a little bit different. And then we do have a number of, again, one of the things that we created because there was a need, or, oh, what is the follow-up letter looks like? So look like. So perhaps there's somebody and they're doing their hearing screening and they need to pass information on to the family to have further diagnostic testing being done. And so we went ahead and created some templates and some follow-up guidance documents for them to be able to do that. And then also created a consideration sheet for teachers of the deaf and hard of hearing to assist with that hearing screening process or be able to collect the names and the information of the kiddos who might have referred from those hearing screenings that happen at school, or they may need some additional follow-up diagnostic information. So perhaps that teacher of the deaf could go into the classroom, do a little bit of an observation, talk to the classroom teacher to see if there are some things that they may note that might be significant, or like, yeah, I do find that it's harder to get Johnny's attention and that sort of thing. And so just some considerations to make sure that we're catching it, and we're catching it as soon as possible. We know that hearing screenings occur they are required to occur in 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th grades, as well as any child who moves in. So what we are missing is kind of that preschool through until 1st grade. There are a number of school districts who are doing a screen at Kindergarten Roundup, which kudos to them, as well as some of them are doing screenings in preschool. it is great. The sooner that we can know that there is something, the sooner that we can address it, and we can make sure that that kiddos aren't falling through the cracks and perhaps not gaining skills as at the same rate as their hearing peers. So the sooner we can catch it, the better. So this is just some information and some resources to make sure that there's a kind of that full loop that occurs after hearing screening. Letters may be sent home, that the family is finding somebody to follow up with diagnostically, and then that information is coming back to the school so that the school can take action if there is perhaps an educational evaluation that needs to be scheduled, or perhaps they are aware so that they may be able to kind of quickly put in some classroom accommodations and that sort of thing if necessary. We also have some guidance documents here about least restrictive environment for kiddos who are deaf and hard of hearing. Oftentimes, so our classroom settings are designed for kiddos who have typical hearing, right? Our curriculum is designed for kids who have typical hearing. And so these are just some considerations about least restrictive environment. And sometimes those general education environments may be more restrictive for our kiddos who are deaf and hard of hearing because they don't have optimal access. We know it is so important to have, and it's the next one, a language-rich environment. So we want to make sure that our kiddos have access to language, because we know that 80% of language that is learned incidentally, not directly taught. And so we want to make sure that they have all of those opportunities. And of course, those opportunities to be able to talk to and have conversations with peers is most crucial, especially for that language development, but also making sure that the classroom itself is optimized and our kiddos have the best access to be able to continue to learn and grow. If we're using interpreters, there's a section here on interpreter how-tos, and our accommodation specialist is wonderful and can give a lot of guidance as well about how to best and effectively use interpreters. And then those educational interpreter considerations, when to use an interpreter, how to most effectively use an interpreter, how to get in preparation materials to the interpreter so that they're prepared for their interpreting day. So those are in there as well. We also have a number of our kiddos who may use AAC or an augmentative alternative communication device. And so we also have guidance documents there. There are some groups nationally that work with a lot of children who are deaf and hard of hearing using AAC, and some of those considerations, especially depending on that auditory or visual feedback loop, that we need to make sure that they have appropriate access to those devices to be able to utilize them most appropriately. Many of our students will use that hearing assistive technology or the microphones that are connected directly to their technology. And so here are some considerations for that. There's also some considerations for if they have devices, so like Chromebooks and laptops and things like that, how will they connect to those things? What about if they have co-teachers, 2 teachers in the classroom? Does somebody to take the microphone on and off all day long, or do we have 2 microphones and they're paired together, that sort of thing, and what do we need to take into consideration there? There are a couple of companies or manufacturers that are most utilized in the schools, and oftentimes, there may need to be a little bit of guidance, especially with financial offices and things like that, to be able to purchase or to be able to set up accounts to be able to purchase appropriate technology. That hearing assistive technology does fall, and educational interpreters do fall under that effective communication. So under ADA, which kind of trumps or supersedes some of the things that we have in Article 7. So if a family member were to request hearing assistive technology or an educational interpreter, our school districts will need to provide that. And we're not waiting on an assessment or to determine if a child is eligible for special education for that to occur. So it is nice to have information about how to quickly establish an account to be able to set that up so that schools can easily order some of that technology and have that available as soon as possible for that kiddo. And I think that this is our second to last slide other than our contact information. So if you need technical assistance, if you know somebody who needs technical assistance, please send them to our website. Again, we have a lot of information there. But if you are interested in our assessment services, here is a QR code to request assessment, whether it be I have assessed a child, I would like for you to kind of take a look at this report, whether it is I want to partner with the Center for Deaf and Hard of Hearing Education to do an educational evaluation, or it's, hey, I've got a child that needs to have a full multidisciplinary assessment. You can go ahead and fill that out there. Also, we have just our deaf education technical assistance. So perhaps, you know, you would like for us to come out and work with a professional, or to give an in-service at the school level or something like that, or to kind of help review an IEP or suggest goals or look at kind of make sure that the educational environment is best fitting for that child. We're happy to do that. And there's a QR code there. And then we also have a request for our educational audiology technical assistance. And I should say we also do partner with Atlas, so of the lending libraries. So you may see this form actually pop up with that. So there is a lending library in conjunction with the Department of Education, where they do have some educational technologies. And it is, we have partnered with Atlas to ensure that an educational audiologist is involved in that process before sending out some of that equipment to schools, so that it is appropriately matched with the existing technology that a child may have at the ear level. So, but anything educational audiology, if you need help reading an audiogram, I don't know what this means, that sort of thing, or does this child qualify? Is this, what am I looking at here? Or can we move forward with an educational evaluation based off of this audiogram or this chart that I see? We are happy to help you navigate that and interpret those results for you. So if you do fill out any of these requests for technical assistance, and it seems like you're looking for maybe more assessment, we will definitely take a look at that, and we'll give it a thorough review and reach back out to you and say, oh, you know what, I think maybe this might be what you're looking for. So feel free to fill out any of those, and we will definitely point you in the right direction.
I just added a link to our referral page on our website into the chat as well. So there are all kinds of referral links there. And as Sarah said, fill one out and we'll help you one way or another.
Yep, give us a call, any one of us, and we'll make sure that we get you connected wherever you need to go. Then I think our last slide, there's our direct contact information. So feel free to reach out to us, and we are happy to assist and answer any questions that you may have. Thank you so much. I see Lisa and Jill popping on.
Thank you so much, ladies. I really appreciate you being here today. For those of you that are on our Facebook Live, I did take the link that Bethany had posted on the Zoom platform. It is now also on our Facebook platform as well. So I don't see any questions that have been posted on our Facebook Live. Ladies, I greatly appreciate you being here today. Lisa, did you have any questions?
Yes, I had a question personally. Thank you so much for all this wonderful information and resources, and we utilize the center all of the time. So thank you for that. I just had if you could just answer kind of a very preliminary question. So if someone has a baby and they failed that first newborn screening, what happens after that? Because if I understand right, maybe there's a second screening or something, and then it goes further. If you wouldn't mind, just give us an idea of what happens, because many times, you know, parents have the baby's taken, you expect the hearing screening to be fine, and they come back and say it's not.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking. So yes, newborn hearing screening should happen before the baby leaves the hospital. And if they're referred, so if they're failing that screening, they should be referred for a secondary screening. And that should be set up by the hospital or in conjunction with the hospital again before they leave. And that should happen within 1 month of age is the goal, and that occurs. And then they would be if referred again from that screening, then going for a full diagnostic audiology evaluation with a pediatric audiologist. And that would be optimally before 3 months of age. And so that at that time, the baby is sleeping. And so they're going to get lots of information. Mom will be given instructions to bring them tired and bring them with the bottle. And then family would be given information, more detailed information, perhaps about general results and perhaps hearing levels and the like. From there, then the child is identified, whether deaf or hard of hearing or no additional need for follow-up. And that's where we kind of talked about then passing that on to Eddie and intervention from there.
Thank you so much. I think that's very helpful because many times it's not something that a family really even thinks of. It's just you check off the boxes, they get these things done at the hospital. So we don't have any questions in the chat, but I did have that question. You have been wonderful resources today and wonderful material. So again, I want to thank you for joining today our webinar with InSource and Center for Deaf and Hard of Hearing Education. And thank my co-host, Jill Summerlot. Thank you everyone for joining us today. And Jill, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Actually, we do have a question. This is being recorded. You will be able to access the recording on our YouTube channel and probably give us a couple days because it takes a while for me to receive it back from Zoom. So it will stay there. And then you can always re-watch the Facebook Live that will be on here. That stays, our Facebook Lives always stay up there. So that will be it to be saved there. I have the QR code back up if anybody is still needing that. Remember the link, the first 2 links of the information that's been put on Facebook and on Zoom. The first link is for our QR code, that tiny URL. The second link is the information for the deaf and hard of hearing services. And then the link, the very last link on everything is the link that Bethany had just put up on referrals. So I just want to make sure everybody's clear on that. Okay. Ladies, again, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate all the information. I learned a lot. I've not been immersed in this part of the disability community, so I learned a lot of things today. So thank you so much for that. At this time, I still don't see any questions. Lisa, do you have any?
I do not. Thank you all so much for joining us today.
All righty. Well, at this time, then I will end our webinar. Ladies, again, thank you so much for being here. Lisa, thank you for being my co-host today.
Thank you all. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.